So we started last week through the book of Joshua, and we are going to pick up in Joshua 1, the 10th verse here in just a few moments. And I hope to finish up through chapter 5 tonight. So we'll see how that goes. Most of you that have been together with us for a while know we never get as far as Mike predicts. So that's going to be our goal though. We had a question last week, which was a great question, and such a good question that I just wanted to contemplate and study on it before I gave an answer. That's a diplomatic way of saying I had no idea. And that was, I said that the conquest of the Promised Land took right around 5 years. And Ernie raised his hand and had a great question. Dallas Smith has an outline of the Old Testament, and he puts in there that the conquest of the Promised Land was 51 years. And Ernie said, so which is it? And so tonight he asked which one of us is right, and I told him neither. The outlines, in fact, it's not just Dallas Smith, it's Kirkpatrick and all the Old Testament outlines will put the conquest of the Old Testament, or conquest of the Promised Land at 51 years. What that is accounting for, as I started to look at that, Ernie, is from the crossing of Jordan to the death of Joshua, or time of Judges. So just like we label historic time frames by the primary event that takes place, that's what they're doing. And so last week I mentioned that the conquest took around 5 years, take or give some years. I really think it's got to be more like 7 at least now. And we'll see as we go forward even further. And then there's 25 years at least of peaceful rule in there. So the outline is from the crossing of Jordan until the time of Judges, which is 51 years. When we look at chapters 6 through 12, when we see the conquering of the Promised Land, it's going to be a much shorter time period than that. So we will get into a little more depth to that probably next week as we start chapter 6, because next week before we start chapter 6 there's a whole litany of questions that we're going to go over. Now I'll give you some ideas about that. Ask yourself about God declaring war, about genocide, and those questions that so often come up, killing children and women, some of those questions that so oftentimes come up over this passage or this area of Scripture. And we're going, Lord willing, look at that next week, or at least at any rate before we start chapter 6 and deal with those. Does that answer your question for the time being, Ernie? For the time being. We are going to look more in depth into that next week, but that's the short answer, is where that's at. All right, chapter 1, remember that the first 5 chapters of Joshua is Joshua taking command. And in these 5 chapters, we do see him doing very Mosaic type things. He looks like Moses. He acts like Moses. God is presenting him like Moses. And then starting in chapter 6, we're going to see the conquest of the Promised Land. You may recall from last week that the second half of this book, chapter 13 through 24, is going to mirror the first half. And it's going to be very similar in many ways, just the opposite. So in verses 1 through 9 that we looked at last week, God is charging Joshua with the leadership of the people. And I think verses 8 and 9 are good verses to be reminded with before we go forward. Because in verse 8, we see that Joshua is to be a spiritual leader, right? He's to meditate on the law. He's to read the law. He's to be mindful of the law and not depart from it. Very spiritually oriented type of leadership in verse 8. Verse 9, we see that he's to be strong and to be courageous, not to be frightened, because the Lord is going to be with him wherever he goes. It's a military type of leadership. So Joshua's role is a big role. Questions or comments before we move forward here? All right. Would someone read verses 10 through 15 for us, please? This is Joshua chapter 1.
Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the host and command the people, saying, Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days you shall pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. And to the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to half the tribe of the Manasseh, spake Joshua, saying, Remember the word which Moses the servant of the Lord commanded you, saying, The Lord your God hath given you the rest, and hath given you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side of the Jordan. But ye shall pass before your brethren armed, all the mighty men of valor, and help them, until the Lord have given your brethren rest, and he hath given you, and they also have possessed the land which the Lord your God giveth them. Then ye shall return unto the land of your possessions, and enjoy it, which Moses and the Lord's servant gave you on the side Jordan toward the sun rising.
Okay, thank you. So, verses 10 and 11 is Joshua saying, get ready, prepare yourself, take your provisions, because within 3 days we're going to cross the Jordan River. We are going to start this conquest, so get ready. Now, I see a little bit of contrast here between Moses and Joshua. Does that jump out at any of the rest of you? Some hands shaking now. With Moses, the spies, and we're going to see that Joshua sends spies in a chapter or so later. But when Moses got there, we send in the 12 spies, and then we come back, and the spies are instrumental in deciding whether we go into the land or not. In fact, I think it's chapter 14, we'll see that it's Caleb that is talking, and he says, I came back and I said, let's go do what the Lord said, but the rest of my fellow men made the hearts of the men, the hearts of the people melt. And our kids, 4 of our kids, for lads to leaders, are in speech. And their topic is strong and courageous, all 4 of them. 4 very different speeches, great speeches, all 4 of them. But one of the ideas that at least 2 of them are bringing out, but neither of them has used Caleb as an example, is that when we're not courageous, we have a negative impact on those around us. Caleb's bringing that out in chapter 14. Notice Joshua is saying, get ready, we're going. We're going to get this done. We're going in. Now he's going to send spies in, but it's not to see whether we can take it or not. It's to have a strategy and have some information about how we're going to do things. Questions or comments on 10 or 11? And then 12 through 15 that we read about Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. They were giving land on the east side of the Jordan River. If we were to come back in the storyline, when they approached the promised land the first time, these three groups of people, three tribes if you will, say to Moses, hey, we want land on this side of the Jordan River. And it's almost like an insult. God has promised you this land, but you say, no, I'd rather have this. And there's some contention over it. But the end result is that Moses instructs them that, okay, you can have this land. And I forgot my slides for tonight, but this was on the slide from last week, so you'll have to use your imagination this week. You can have the land on the east side of the Jordan River, and your wives and your children and your livestock can stay on this side of the Jordan. But as for you men, you're going to cross the Jordan River and help your fellow Israelites fight and throughout the conquest. And when the conquest is over, you can come back to your land. And that's what verses 12 through 15 are about. Questions or comments? Right. Then, would someone read 16 through the end of the chapter for us?
We will do, and whithersoever thou sendest us, we will go. According as we had hearkened unto Moses and all the things, so we hearken unto thee. Only the Lord thy God be with thee, as he was with Moses. Whosoever he be that doth rebel against thy commandments, they will not hearken unto thy words, in all that thou commandest him. He shall be put to death. Only be strong and have a good courage.
Thank you. And so they respond and say, pretty simple, right? We're going to do this. You will be as Moses was to us. We're going to see later that God says to Joshua, I'm going to show the people that I'm with you like I was to Moses. Nate, isn't it interesting that people say to Joshua, be strong and be courageous? They're encouraging him at this point to stay on course. Why is it that God has to remind Joshua to stay on course and the people remind Joshua to stay on course? This is maybe the most applicable thing we'll read tonight, in my mind at least. I believe it's because every step of the way, there's going to be discouragement, there's going to be difficulty, there's going to be distractions. Sounds like a sermon, doesn't it, Gary? Discouragement, distractions, and difficulties, right? And everything in life is going to say, no, quit. No, go the other way. Don't go that way. And God's reminding them. People are reminding them. You're going to have to stay dedicated, right? Thanks a reminder for us. Everything in life worth having, including our spiritual walk, takes dedication, right? There's going to be all kinds of distractions and discouragement. Fred asked a great question. Why was the tribe of Levi not given any land? And there's the short answers to that is there's two reasons. One is the end of the book of Genesis. You see that that's one of the curse or blessing, however you would say that, of Jacob to the son Levi because of some of his actions. And secondly, because God had chosen him as priest. And so their lot was to serve God and to be supported for that. So Fred, that's the short answer. If you care to look at that further, we'll look at verses, you and I, on that. Any other questions or comments? Chapter 2 then. One of the three women named in Jesus' lineage are here in the second chapter of Joshua. Would someone read 1 through 7 for us?
And Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men secretly from Shittim and spies, saying, Go, view the land, especially Jericho. And they went and came into the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told of the king of Jericho, Behold, men of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land. Then the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, Bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them, and she said, True, the men come to me, but I did not know where they were from. And when the gate was about to be closed at dark, the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hid them with the stalks of flax that she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued after them on the way to the Jordan, as far as the fords, and the gate was shut as soon as the pursuers had gone out.
Okay, thank you. David, you read that for us. Did Joshua have a father? No. He was the son of Nun. Yeah. All right. So he was the son of Nun. She understands, just doesn't see the humor. And so these 2 spies go out, and they go to Rahab's house. And why are they at Rahab's house? What is Rahab? Harlot, prostitute. Right? Now, I've been asked this question many, many times. Why do they go to her house?
When Moses was in there, when they set the 12 up, 2 of them spies, she hid them 2 spies too, Caleb and Joshua. Right?
Not so sure about that.
They would have gone to her house because she was accustomed to having strange men come in.
Strange men, is that what you were going to say?
Gave them perfect cover.
Gave perfect cover. Yeah. Bob, I'd have to look into that. I'm not sure about that. But that, what these 2 said, it's not stated. But this, I think, is the answer. That they gave them cover. There are people going in and out of this house, right? Visitors to the town. Locals from the town. A lot of traffic of all kinds, different kinds, were going to this house. I think 2 things that come to my mind, and some are very adamant that Rahab was an innkeeper, not a prostitute. And I see nothing in English nor in the Hebrew that indicates that whatsoever. And I think that one of the things that we have a difficult time grasping our minds with, but when we understand who God is, it's not difficult to understand, it's almost expected, is we have trouble with the idea that God would use a prostitute. Right? And when we understand God, I think it's expected. These men are there for cover. They understand that Rahab can be of use for them. I don't think the men understood how much she was going to be of use, but God certainly knew that, of just how helpful she was going to be. Questions or comments on that side?
God uses all kinds of people to do what he wants to get done what he needs to do.
Yep.
You don't have to be perfect to do it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. Now, what we didn't see in the first 7 verses is Rahab's motivation, did we? You know, what does she do? She hides the men, and she says, they went that way. And so the searchers, the search squads, go out, and the gates are closed immediately behind them. That ends up being important, as we'll notice in just a few moments. So what we see at this point is that Rahab hides them and covers for them, not just physically, but gives a distraction for them. And the motivation will come later. Questions or comments? Yes?
Fred has some.
She was. He asked, was she an owner of a house of ill repute? I think Fred has worded that absolutely perfect for us. Indeed she was. Indeed she was. Would someone read verses 8 through 14 for us? Before the men lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you also will deal kindly with my father's house, and give me a sure sign, that you will save alive my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. And the men said to her, our life for yours, even to death. If you do not tell the business of ours, when the Lord gives us the land, we will deal kindly and faithfully with you. What was Rahab's motivation? What was it?
Family first.
Okay, family first. We'll touch on that in a moment. Absolutely. Fear. Okay. Yeah.
Salvation.
Salvation. There's, boy, a strong salvation. That ties all these things in together, doesn't it? She was certain of victory belonged to the Israelites. Certain of it. She's simply picking the winning side, isn't she? Yeah. I think that's her motivation. She knows whether she protects these spies or not, the Israelites win the battle. She's just picking the winning side. Now, that brings in fear, brings in victory. Who does she, and salvation, as Gary said, all 3 of them. Who does she attribute for the winning of the battle? Who is going to be responsible for it? God. She didn't say, we've taken note of the mighty army and we're fearful of the army. No. Isn't this interesting? Our hearts melted from the time that we heard what God did at the Red Sea. Let me ask you this. Was that before or after the 12 spies went in for Moses? The Red Sea. Before. You see, the spies were looking at the size of the men. God had already struck fear into their hearts. God wasn't asking the men of Israel to go in and win the battles. He was asking them to go in. He was going to win it for them. This is what the spies did not see the first time around. This is what was going on in their hearts. Absolutely, and Fred has a great comment here that I think kind of ties in with what Gary was saying. That she knew there was a God, and she believed that God would deliver. Rahab shows more faith here than the entire generation that fell in the desert. Right? Absolutely. I think, too, this shows what faithfulness is, isn't it? Faithfulness is not just believing in Jesus Christ. It's also not doing everything, being capable of doing everything perfect ourselves. It's believing that His way is the right way, right? And submitting to that to the best of our ability. Verse 15 through 21, would someone read that?
Then she let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. Then she said unto them, Get you to the mountain, lest the pursuers meet you, and hide yourself there 3 days, until the pursuers be returned, and afterwards make ye go your way. And the men said unto her, We will be blameless of this thine oath, which thou hast made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt bind this line of scarlet thread in the window which thou didst let us down by, and thou shalt bring thy father and thy mother and thy brethren and all thy father's household home unto thee. And it shall be that whosoever goes out of the doors of the house unto the street, his blood shall be upon his head, and he will be guiltless. And whosoever shall be with thee in the house, the blood shall be on your head, if any hand be upon him. And if thou utter this our business, then we will be quit of thine oath which thou hast made us to swear.
One more if you will.
One more? Okay. And she said, According unto your word, so be it. And she sent them away, and they departed, and she found the scarlet line in the window.
Thank you. So, relatively simple. They make a bind. Said, put this scarlet cord in your window. If you stay in your house, you and your family, anyone that comes in to your house and harms you will be found guilty. If you leave the house, though, that's your own doing. We're not taking responsibility for you. Pretty simple agreement, right? Stay in the house. We promise you no harm will come to you. Questions or comments?
Lessons could you teach if all 12 spies would have come back with a good report?
Oh, wow. Well, the lessons would look way different than they do now, anyhow, right? Yeah.
I mean, we're always talking about the 10 spies coming back with a bad report, but there's a reason they did it. You know, that's what I look. look at it is.
Yeah. Yeah, God uses that to instruct us too, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. History.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So notice here Rahab doesn't only hide them, cause a distraction for them. She's on the wall. Her house is of a place of position. There's another strategic reason they're there. So she's going to lower them down the outside of the wall. Remember, the gates are closed. And she says, hey, go to the hills and stay there until the parties come back. Why? Because she told them they're heading to the Jordan. And those pursuers are heading that way as fast as they can to catch them. Right? So, gives them great advice. Anything else? I'll read the last couple verses here. They departed and went into the hills and remained there 3 days until the pursuers returned. And the pursuers searched all along the way and found nothing. Then the 2 men returned. They came down from the hills and passed over and came to Joshua, the son of Nun. And they told him all that had happened to them. And they said to Joshua, truly, the Lord has given all the land into our hands, and also all the inhabitants of the land melt away because of us. So they make it back to the Jordan, make it back to Joshua, say, listen, this is a sign, right? God surely has given the land to us. Questions or comments? All right, we'll get into 3 here. So, chapter 2 is the spies, spying out Jericho. Chapter 3 is the story of crossing the Jordan. I don't think we're going to make it through 5 completely, but we're going to get close. Would someone read 1 through 6 for us?
And they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan. He and all the children of Israel lodged there before they passed over. It came to pass after 3 days that the officer went through the host. And they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests the Levites bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Come not near unto it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for ye have not passed this way heretofore. How far?
Through 6, please.
And Joshua said unto the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. And Joshua spake unto the priests, saying, take up the ark of the covenant, and pass over before the people. And they took up the ark of the covenant, and went before the people.
Thank you much. What does the Ark of the Covenant represent? God, the presence of God. You don't get before it, do you? You stay behind it, you follow it. And so it's interesting. Cubit is 18 inches, roughly. 2,000 cubics is about 3,000 feet. That's roughly 3/4 of a mile, right? Without doing precise math. Point is, over half a mile anyhow, right? Point is, it's at quite a distance behind. There is importance there about being presumptuous and getting ahead of God, but also there's a functional purpose for that. You have a whole army, you're organized, you're traveling in a way that is effective and efficient. Secondly, he tells them, verse 5, consecrate yourselves. I need to concentrate. They were to consecrate themselves. What does that mean? Cleanse? Yep. That's part of it. What's consecrate mean? Set aside, right? The concept of holy is separate. Prepare yourselves for a specific duty, right? Which very oftentimes had to do with cleansing, right? Preparing to do the work of the Lord is what they're doing here. You're not doing this. You're not on your time. You're not doing your agenda. You're here for the Lord. You're going to take care of what He's had for you. And so with that, the ark rises. The Levites take it out. And they're now going to follow the ark. Questions, comments? Yes? Yes, exactly. Consecrate, sanctify. Absolutely. Yep. 7 through 13. Would someone read that?
And the Lord said unto Joshua, This day will I bring or begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. And thou shalt command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, When ye are come to the brink of the water in Jordan, ye shall stand still in Jordan. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, Come hither, and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, Whereby ye shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will, without fail, drive out from before you the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Hivites and the Perizzites and the Amorites and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passes over before you into Jordan. Now before, take you 12 men out of the tribe of Israel, out of every tribe a man. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the water of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down and above, and ye shall stand upon a heap.
Okay, thank you. We're going to quickly summarize the rest of this chapter, and then, Lord willing, next week we'll start in chapter 4. So, this event of crossing the Jordan River on dry land is a type of the Red Sea crossing, right? Verse 5, when I missed this because I got on the consecrate part, but tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. He's going to do an amazing sign. Why? Why is he going to do this wonder, these wonders?
They probably never seen it.
Yeah.
Fathers did.
Or they were really young. They were under 20. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. It's been a long time. And verse 10, I think, is the answer to that. Here's how you shall know that the living God is among you. That term, living God, throughout Scripture is just so wonderful. It's a contrast to every other God in the world, right? It's a living God. This is a sign that He's going to drive these people out from before you, that He is going to be with you. Here's how you're going to know it. He's going to dry up the Jordan River. And what happens is the water just heaps up on the top side. So pick out one man from each tribe, and you pick a rock up from the middle of the Jordan River. By the way, this time of years, later when you read on your time, the second half of this chapter, this time of year the Jordan River's flooded. And so it went from flooded to dry, and it's heaping up on the north side. On the upside. So take these big rocks, and we're going to make an altar on the top, on the back side, the other side of the Jordan, so we remember what took place. Why these stones? Because they would have been underwater. They were impossible to get any other way this time of year. And so they crossed on dry land. I'll talk in just a moment. I want you to think about the fact that they knew God would do great things in the future because He was about to perform an incredible sign. We'll look at that in just a moment. Thank you very much.